Millionaire's daughter made every nanny quit, until this one changed everything. At exactly 10:35 a.m. on a bright Tuesday morning, in a massive glass-walled mansion that overlooked the shimmering coastline, everything looked perfect from the outside: expensive cars glimmering in the sun, gardeners arranging imported flowers, house staff moving like silent ghosts in designer uniforms. But inside, where warmth and family were supposed to live, there was a different reality, a heartbreaking truth that most people would never believe. A truth so heavy that it had made 9 professional nannies quit in a single year. They all left in tears, trembling, terrified, and completely broken. Because of one tiny girl. A little girl who carried the kind of pain only adults were supposed to carry. A little girl whose eyes didn't shine, whose smile never came, and whose silence could crush anyone who tried to reach her. Before we continue this powerful story, please, if you believe in second chances, in hearts that can still be healed, in kindness that can still save people, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Because sometimes one small act can change a whole world. Her name was Sienna Larkwood, and she was the only daughter of billionaire property magnate Vane Larkwood. The world idolized him as the man who built luxury skyscrapers across 3 continents. Magazines called him a genius. Newspapers called him unstoppable. Investors called him visionary. But his daughter, every nanny who tried to care for her, called him something else. Absent. Always in meetings, always on jets, always in boardrooms, but never emotionally present. Little Sienna's mother, Araceli, had passed away 2 years earlier due to aggressive heart failure. And the day she died, something inside Sienna shut down so deeply that no one, not doctors, not therapists, not child experts, could unlock it. The girl refused to speak to anyone. She refused to eat if someone touched her plate. She would only sleep if she was alone. She screamed if anyone came near her. She would stare at walls as if the world didn't matter. And worst of all, she kept a small silver locket clutched in her palm so tightly her fingers were permanently dented from holding it. It contained a picture of her mother smiling next to her. But nobody dared attempt to take it from her, because she would explode in violent panic. Every nanny Vane hired was paid a breathtaking salary. They were top-tier women with experience, degrees, patience. But none of them lasted more than 3 weeks. Some left after 3 days. Some left after 1. The last one left in 3 hours when Sienna shattered a ceramic vase and screamed so loudly the woman thought the girl was possessed. The Larkwood mansion didn't need help, it needed healing. And then came Calla Viridian. Calla was not rich, she was not glamorous. She didn't own fancy perfumes or expensive handbags. She didn't come from privilege or elite networks. She came from a tiny middle-class town, with a scarred past of her own. She lost her younger sister when she was 9, lost her to illness. And for years, Calla lived with what she thought was the weight of guilt for not saving her. It took her half a lifetime to understand that some things are not in our control. But her grief taught her something no university degree ever could: how to listen to silent pain. When she arrived for the interview, she wore pale blue jeans, a plain cotton blouse, and her hair in a loose ponytail. Vane barely noticed her. He interviewed her not because he believed she could help, but because he was desperate. He had already prepared a contract to offer before she even spoke. He was willing to try anything. His house manager whispered to him, "She isn't qualified enough on paper." Vane whispered back, "At this point, I just need someone who won't run." Calla didn't talk about money. She didn't ask about perks. She didn't try to flatter Vane. She only asked one question before she signed the contract to work. "Does your daughter love fresh daylight?" That single question made Vane freeze. Because in the last 2 years, not a single nanny had asked what his daughter liked. They all only asked what she did. They all asked about behavior. None asked about the girl behind the behavior. For a moment, Vane stared at Calla and felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Calla entered the mansion's sunlit library where little Sienna sat curled by a window, staring out at the ocean. Her tiny shoulders were shaking, but there were no sounds, just silent trembling. Calla didn't go near her, she didn't force a hello. She didn't stand tall like a caretaker who needed respect. Instead, she quietly sat on the floor near the window, not close, but near enough that the child would notice her presence. And she gently took out a small watercolor paper sheet and placed it on the floor. But she didn't paint. She simply laid the paintbrush down and waited. Then she started coloring a single circle of yellow, sunlight. Not a child's drawing. A simple color circle like artists start with. Sienna didn't move, but she kept staring outside. Then a small tear rolled down her cheek, because her mother used to paint. And Sienna remembered. She remembered those sunlit mornings when her mother painted on the balcony, blending colors, mixing sunlight and breeze into soft, beautiful shades. Calla didn't know this yet, but she had unknowingly placed her hand on the one memory that still lived inside Sienna. Hours passed. Calla didn't push, she didn't demand, she didn't chase, she simply existed in quiet presence. The more days passed, the more things shifted. Sienna would inch closer. She would pick a paintbrush and dip it in water. Sometimes she would drop the brush mid-stroke because she felt overwhelmed with emotion. Sometimes she would break down silently. But Calla never left her side when she hurt. She didn't talk, not because she didn't know what to say, but because sometimes the most powerful healing lives in the silence where pain feels seen instead of judged. One late morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, Sienna did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She whispered, barely audible, "Yellow." Calla didn't cry, but her heart did. She whispered gently, "Yes, yellow is warm." From that day on, slow things began. Gentle things. Little steps. Sienna started responding to colors. Then to music. Then to cookies that had chocolate chips shaped like stars. Calla baked them every Wednesday. The girl started drawing. The girl started humming. The girl started picking wildflowers from the courtyard garden. And one day, she placed one flower in Calla's hand. No nanny had ever gotten close. Vane saw everything. He quietly observed from afar like a man witnessing a miracle he didn't dare interrupt. Every evening Calla recorded little voice notes for him. Updates about small progress. But one evening was different. That evening, she called him to join them. She was sitting with Sienna on the balcony. Sienna had painted a sun with messy strokes, bright yellow in the center. Vane walked closer, cautious, hesitant. Sienna looked up at her father, not with anger, not with fear, but with the softness of someone trying to trust again. She held up her little painting. "Daddy, look, sunlight." Vane didn't breathe. He just knelt silently. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a broken father who had just found the piece of his heart that had been missing. Tears rolled down his face. And as Sienna hugged him, Calla quietly stepped back. That was the moment Vane realized. The real riches are not the ones he built with steel and glass. The real riches are the ones he almost lost, because he was too busy chasing the world. From that day, breakfast was eaten together near the warm window. No staff. No formalities. Just father and daughter and Calla joining like family. Light returned to the mansion. Not just in brightness but in spirit. And then, something even more beautiful happened. Sienna took off the silver locket she had guarded like her life depended on it. She walked over to Calla, and placed it gently in her palm. The gesture was bigger than words. She was saying, "I trust you. I believe you won't leave." And for the first time in a very long time, Vane knew his daughter was safe. Not because Calla was a nanny, but because Calla had become a bridge between a shattered heart and the world again. Sometimes healing doesn't come from perfect people. Sometimes healing comes from broken people who understand brokenness. Calla didn't cure Sienna. She didn't fix her. She simply loved her in silence until the girl remembered she deserved to be loved. If this story touched your heart even a little, please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Help this story reach someone who might need it today. You never know who's silently breaking and waiting to be seen. Special request. Comment below with the word sunlight if you believe one person can still change someone's world. Because sometimes, all it takes, is one person who doesn't give up when the world has already walked away.